Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly, and we're back with another On the Salt with Captain David Blinken. David, how are you?
I'm great, Marvin. I'm starting to melt away a little in all this heat, but I think I'll be around for the heat wave to break.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're cooler out on Long Island than you are down here in the Carolinas, but you know the bummer for you is you've had a lot of wind, and so you probably are having a little bit of withdrawal because you haven't been able to get out on the water.
Yeah, last week was rough. We were only able to fish certain tides, and then the wind would just kick in big time. And now the past 2 days, it's been blowing anywhere from 20 to 35 miles an hour. So that's pretty much kept us on the beach, as they say.
Yeah, that's a bummer. What do you expect to see when you get out on the water in the next day or so?
Well, you know, the fish have kind of had a few days off, right? So I'm hoping to find some stripers in shallow water. I think I'll probably be fishing crustacean patterns because there hasn't been a lot of bait in the bay. So, you know, little mantis shrimp patterns and mole crabs and little green and blue claws, you know, like size 2s.
Yeah, it's funny. It makes me think about going to the beach as a kid and catching those things in buckets.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I used to take my kids to the beach and we would dig up mole crabs and throw them in a bucket and, you know, they'd play with them and then we'd release them back. And of course, you know, kids have a great fun with mole crabs because they don't bite. They just kind of scurry around. They're kind of fun.
Yeah, it's neat stuff. Yeah, it's funny. It's, you know, it's, I always think of myself as more of a mountain person than a beach person. But then every time I go to the beach, I really like it and say I should do more of that. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I love the mountains and the beach, but the beach certainly in the summer. And, you know, you never know what you're going to see when you're hanging out in the folding chair, staring out at the water.
Yeah, hopefully a gin and tonic would be what you would see. That would be my call. So,
yeah, that or a school of stripers.
There you go. Well, we've got a question for you from Brenner, and he wanted to get your thoughts, David, on your favorite topwater flies and the favorite species you like to target with those flies.
Well, I think, you know, there's a whole bunch of topwater flies. You know, you've got Boilermakers and Gurglers and crease flies and stuff like that. But I'm really a big fan of Jack Gartside's fly, the Gurgler. And it casts really easily. It makes a lot of commotion. It stays on top beautifully. And over the years, I've actually modified it, started tying it slightly differently, just to make it a little more robust and to make it float a little better and where I can use bigger hooks. So that's kind of my go-to fly. And maybe I'll send you a picture of it for further scrutiny. And I really, there's 2 species of fish I love throwing these things at. I mean, I like throwing it at everything, but if I have my druthers, I want to throw them at big bluefish because nothing attacks topwater like bluefish. It's just like an out of body experience. When they hit those flies, they come so hard at them that they're sometimes 2 feet out of the water on the strike. It's really exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then another fish I love throwing gurglers at is tarpon. And you fish them very differently. With the tarpon, you just kind of literally pull them through the water along the edges of mangroves, and they just leave a little V-wake, and it's just enough to make the tarpon kind of slide up behind them. And if they're in the right mood, they'll smash it. And most of the time, they just come up behind it like a giant trout, and they just suck them down. You'll just see a hole in the water where the tarpon's mouth suddenly opened up. It's really quite exciting.
And so back on the bluefish, you know, when you're fishing those, or you got the bait busting, do you just kind of throw it in there and strip it out? Is the fly larger than kind of what you think the naturals are? Kind of what's the tactic there?
Well, I'll tell you something really interesting. You know, with bluefish, we have them in different areas. Sometimes we have bluefish on the flats, and they're just kind of daisy chaining or swimming around in strings. So we're just throwing it out in front of them or along the edge of a daisy chain and just, sort of moderately stripping them back so the fly makes commotion, but you're not ripping it so fast that you're taking it away from the fish. And then other times, you're throwing it into boils, where they're just on top and they're raging and they're eating a ton of bait. And you just kind of flop it in there, and you can almost dead drift it in those situations, and they'll come and smash it off the top. So, it's always in all of fishing, it's always very situational, and you just have to adapt and change to whatever the fish are doing.
Very, very neat. And, folks, we love questions at the Articulate Fly. Email me or DM me, or if you want to hear your question being read on the podcast, if you go to the podcast link at thearticulatefly.com, you can actually record your question and we can actually drop it in and people can hear it. So if that interests you, you can do that. We love questions. If we use your question, I will send you some Articulate Fly swag, and then we're going to have a drawing at the end of the season for these, and the winner is going to get the Royal Wolf line of their choice. And I just love Royal Wolf lines.
Oh, yeah. I love them too. I've had a chance to use many different lines. And the one thing in saltwater that you never want happening is a line to get kind of coily or have what we call memory. And one of the great things about the Royal Wolf lines are they just have no memory at all. You can pull it off a reel after 10 days and it'll cast just like it had been stretched. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I know you've got the tropical lines. I've got the triangle taper for trout, and I just think they're great for roll casting and mending and managing line.
Yeah, I love the Bermuda shorts, but when I am trout fishing, I definitely have my my triangle taper, and they also do a shooting head version of it too, which is really wonderful. People should go on Royal Wolf's website and see what they got. It's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, and I'll drop a link to their website in the show notes. And David, I know you've got a trip that you're trying to find a couple more folks for in August to Mexico, but then you've got other trips going on in guiding too. You want to let folks know a little bit about that?
Well, let's see. The Mexico trip, I have a couple of openings for August 2nd. If anyone wants to join us, it's going to be me and the writer Steve Ramirez is going to be joining me. And we got a couple spots open to tarpon fish for 4 days in Campeche, departing August 2nd and returning August 7th. It's 4 days, and it's prime time down there for tarpon. It's during the rainy season. It only rains after 4 in the afternoon, but a lot of water gets stored up in the mangroves and flushes out and keeps the tarpon on the outside of the mangroves, which makes it a lot of fun to go fishing.
Yeah, and you got to get breakfast at 5 in the morning and be ready to go, right?
Oh, definitely. We're having breakfast 5:30, and we're out. We're hopefully hooking up the first fish by 6:30 a.m.
Yeah, and so, but you've got other trips kind of as we kind of move deeper into the season as well, right?
Well, I'll be guiding in Martha's Vineyard for a couple of weeks, starting the 12th of August, and I'll be there till the 24th. And I've got another trip going to Mexico in November, where I think I have one slot open. The December trip is sold out, and if people are interested in going to Belize in the spring, I may have I haven't really booked it yet, but I've got a few slots open for permit fishing down at Copal Tree.
Yeah, and so they should just go to davidblinken.com and get all the info and reach out that way, right?
Yeah, they can just reach out directly to me from my website, and the info is not on my website. It's just something that they can call and find out what the schedule is, and I'll fill them in.
Well, there you go. Well, listen, folks, as I always say, you owe it to yourself to get out there and catch a few. Tight lines, everybody. Tight lines, David.
Tight lines.